This is sufficient assumption number 6. So um, if we're assuming one of the answer choices, we're going to plug it back in to that stimulus. This is a bottom up question. Um, so let's get started. So political theorist says, for all of its members to be strong in foreign policy, an alliance of countries must respond aggressively to problems. An alliance will only do so if every member of the alliance perceive the problems as grave. But the European Union countries will not all perceive the problem as grave unless they all agree it threatens their alliance's economy. Thus, not all the member countries of the European Union will be strong in foreign policy. So let's point out our conclusion here first before we even, get to anything else. Our conclusion would be, thus, not all of the member countries will be strong in foreign policy. Okay. And so if we think about it, we're saying they're not going to be strong in foreign policy because for everyone to be strong, going back up to the top, they must respond aggressively. Okay. So to be strong, must respond aggressively. They will only do that if every member perceive the problems as grave. They also say not all of them perceive it as grave unless they all agree it threatens their economy. Um, so off the bat, we can see like what's going to make this sufficient assumption question fully true. We're looking to completely justify our conclusion. We're looking for something that's going to help us understand this idea that, they're not going to perceive the problem as grave unless they all threaten their economy. We need these things to be true in order to get to our conclusion in a roundabout way. So we'll go through our answer choices and see, what do we think? Alrighty, so A, countries that refuse to join alliances generally respond more aggressively to problems than do countries that join alliances. So we're only talking about alliances here. We don't care about countries that refuse to join alliances. B, countries become less aggressive in foreign policy if greater wealth leads them to think they have more to lose by responding to problems aggressively. Well, that seems pretty random. We don't, we need to know whether they think this problem is grave. Does it threaten their economy? Um, they having more to lose with what? They want us to assume that that's relating to foreign policy or to the economy, but it's not necessarily the case. More to lose with respect to, it could be with respect to foreign policy, could be respect with like humanitarian relations. We don't know what they're talking about. C, problems that appear to some member countries of the European Union to threaten the alliance's economy will not appear so to others. We just kind of zoom out. They're basically saying not everyone is going to perceive this problem as threatening the economy. And if we go back, that's the link what we need. If not everyone agrees that it threatens the economy, then they're not going to all perceive the problem as grave. If they don't perceive the problem as grave, then they're not going to respond aggressively. And in order for people to be strong in foreign policy, the whole alliance of countries must respond aggressively. And if they don't do that, they're not going to be strong in foreign policy. So C is directly what we need to look at here. D, European Union member countries that fail to perceive the economic relevance of problems are generally weak in foreign policy. So, we're basically saying, all members cannot are strong if this happens, or they're not strong if this happens. We're not talking about individual member countries and perceiving the economic relevance of problems. No, we just need to see is there something threatening their economy? We're not looking at economic relevance. It's a little too broad and generally weak. I don't know if I like that right now. E, alliances that are economically beneficial for a given country are not necessarily beneficial with respect to foreign policy. What is this beneficial talk here? We're not talking about whether alliances are beneficial or not. We're really thinking, are they going to be strong in foreign policy and how do we get there? So we would choose C as our answer. Now, some people would be like, oh, but I really need to diagram this. This is true. We could definitely diagram this. So, okay. So we would think that first part, if it's strong in foreign policy, then it responds aggressively. You only respond aggressively if every member of the alliance perceives the problems of the grave. So responds aggressively. European Union countries will not all perceive a problem as grave unless they all agree that it threatens their alliance's economy. So unless they all agree it threatens their alliance's economy. And then their conclusion is not strong, basically, or not all strong. I probably should note all, not all, but basically we've got this going on. And so, what C is doing is it's plugging in this idea that, if problems that appear to some member countries threaten to appear are not appearing so for others. So basically they can't agree whether it threatens the economy. You get that from some, not all. Some just means like minimum one, but it just takes one to mean not 100%. So that's the key here. So we know that they're they respond aggressively. Like I should say all see it as a grave issue. All believe that it threatens. If they don't all believe that it threatens, they don't all believe that it's a grave situation. If they don't all believe it's a grave situation, then they're not going to think they're not going to respond aggressively. That's what we know from above. If they're not responding aggressively, then it's not all strong, which is what we end up with our conclusion. So, we could do this multiple ways, but I think it's one of the fastest ways for you to go through these questions is really thinking about, this answer choice. How does it relate just to the conceptual words that are going on up top? Some means, not all in this case. And that's going to be helpful for us to really trace back, okay, if we know that, problems appear to threaten the alliance to some people, but not others, we know, okay, so, they don't all agree that it threatens their alliance's economy. And you can kind of trace it back there to get to C for your answer.